All right, we've got some questions here. So this one looks technical to me. So let's see how I get here. Speaker view. There we go. So from Dilly Gaffer, and will the digital dice increase overhead? Is the overhead in local or remote or both? And if so, is there going to be a way to turn it off or tweak the overhead it uses? I'll let you
Yeah.
take that one, Dave.
Yep. So the digital dice are delivered through JS. Primarily, we're building on top of Babylon, and so it is a package, and there are assets that will have to be downloaded to the client for the dice to roll. There will be a toggle on your character sheet where you can turn it off should you want, and we're looking at ways to optimize the experience per device or per settings. A lot of the initial load is going to be around the size of the assets that are coming down. So there may be things that we can do with having lower res assets if you want, a less burdensome download. So those are things that we're looking at as we're starting to roll this out. We've done an internal alpha already, primarily with just like admin accounts and us internally in the office, our moderators, and we're processing through that feedback now, and helping that kind of determine what that's going to look like in the future. I don't want to give away too much, but I mean, and it's not just the desktop that we're having to consider as well for digital dice. So its performance is definitely something that
So
we have an eye
I'll
on.
go on and share that. Like, it makes a lot of sense that we would put the dice into the mobile app at some
Yeah,
point. So that's
yeah,
totally fine. Dave's doing the right thing by not promising anything for the future. But yes, it makes a lot of sense that we would do that in the player app. So there we go.
yep.
All right, let's see. Got another one. Maybe. I'm trying to figure this out. Oh, I know. I got it on speaker view. That's what the problem is. How do I pin? Can I pin? Oh, I pinned it. Oh, I did it. All right, let's see what we got here. Felon_H, what are you using for code testing?
A lot of people. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, let's
That's a
see. How
good
many
one.
how many users do we have right now? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, so
4 million testers.
yep,
It's great.
that's right. So we do have, and that was another problem. Honestly, I'm glad this question came up with the monolith that we wrote that we're running on. The way it was originally designed as architecture made it extremely hard to have large batteries of unit tests. Right, it's just not engineered in an interface driven manner, and it's been extremely hard to try to go back and add unit tests in that kind of environment in a in a realistic way and in a time effective way. Um, so that is one benefit that we get by migrating out to these microservices is they're very limited in scope, hence the term micro, and it's very easy to have a test-driven development approach to those. And knowing you're only having to answer a few questions in this microservice, you can write your unit test around those. And we're primarily just doing that in .NET itself. With there's a couple of different .NET based testing suites like XUnit, and I think that's the one that was actually integrated into Visual Studio. We're currently on 2017, fixing to migrate to 2019, or some of us are using VS Code as well. And that's primarily what we're writing our unit test in. Now we also have more functional integration tests that our QA engineer performs on a lot of our sites. So he'll do test plans for features or updates to features, and he has a testing framework as well that automates some of that. And it's if you've used products like Selenium in the past, it's kind of written around those frameworks, basically scripting out user interactions, through a browser or a headless browser, and mimicking what those user interactions are.
All right. Between this next question, real quick, because we changed over screen sharing, I wanted to do one more. legendary bundle giveaway. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. So in chat, you're going to need to type ! Tech Talk in honor of Dave joining us today. So ! Tech Talk, and you'll have a chance to win a legendary bundle as he's answering this next question. So we got Banks, Bank C, I bet is what we're going for there. Have you needed to implement any async processing, i.e. service bus, rabbit, hangfire, etc.?
Not yet, but glad that question came up too. Hold on, I think I'm kind of froze there a little bit.
A little bit of robot. You're good.
It is on our very near term roadmap that, and this kind of goes along with the dice feature, that we need to collect those dice roll results and broadcast those out. So we are looking at a couple of different alternatives in AWS to do that. But not only do we want to broadcast those results, we also want to record those results. So we're looking at what system we're going to put in place. One, to do the original broadcast, and I can tell you we're probably leaning toward the WebSocket Gateway API in AWS, and then as those events are occurring and processing those, broadcasting those back out to the subscribers, hooking into those events, storing those results, probably in a key value store like DynamoDB or NoSQL, which will feed into other features potentially in the future. But then also, Dynamo itself is not very reportable for analytics. So then we would also probably use like DynamoDB streams to capture that right and put that into like more of a data lake for actual reporting and analytics, and whatever other algorithms we want to apply to that kind of data.
So from Thomas Emick, has the technical complications of implementing a feature of D&D ever influenced the unearthed arcana that D&D publishes? So I'll go on and take this one, Dave. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does. So the best example is a very current one with class feature variants. We have not been able to implement that yet, even though we have certainly connected with Wizards of the Coast to understand that that was coming down the pipeline, and all of that. They do not finalize the actual mechanics of how that's going to work until very, very close to when they drop that to the public. So we had, a few days probably before that was revealed to the public, before we saw that. And since we weren't able to, and by the way, this is not their fault or anything, because they're developing, they're hashing out what's going to work for the game. And as that came to us, we realized that sure, we could jam something into the system that would probably like work. It would at least get you close enough that you would be able to approximate these class features. But then we started thinking, okay, wait, if this does make it to an official product, what is that data migration going to look like? What's going to come from, okay, we put in this like temporary solution that got this just stood up as a straw man for everyone out there. How are we going to take that character and make sure it survives the transition well? And how are we going to make sure that we don't completely, as you add 3 times the number of class features all of a sudden for classes on 26, 27 million. I don't even know how many characters we are at this point, because it just keeps going up really rapidly in the last month. But all of these millions of characters, is that going to just completely kill the system? And all kinds of considerations that we've had to really dive into. And so, yes, Unearthed Arcana comes, and we are reacting to that in a lot of ways, because we're getting it right. Since it is just testing content, Wizards would never spend a development cycle that close to an actual book release, but with testable content, that's how that goes. And so with something like the psionic subclasses revisited this last week, we are going to release that. The current plan is Monday. We are trying to release that. We might not cover every single thing that's doing out of the gate, like the psionic die, I believe it's called, or the psychic die possibly. That's an entirely new mechanic that we've never seen, right? And so all of those things are always a challenge for us to react to. If a subclass is doing something that all these other subclasses have done that has some kind of precedent in the game, typically it is just our game content management team. They can just put that in and then we can release it. But anytime some kind of new mechanics released for Unearthed Arcana, it absolutely causes technical complications, and we have to weigh the short-term benefits versus those longer-term benefits for the platform. All right, Pokey Proxy, what's the biggest tech hurdle you've encountered during your dev time in DDB? So the biggest, what's the biggest hurdle that you've encountered? You can list 20 if you need to. You can say warlocks if you need to.
Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Ooh, man, that one's caused a lot of problems. Yeah.
Tales from the Yawning Portal. No, I kid. Probably, I wouldn't necessarily say it was the biggest hurdle, but it was the most frustrating, and it's what led to the outage times we had back in the first week of January this year, January 4th and 5th, and we thought we had more headroom on our web nodes than we really did. As far as vertical scalability, again, we can't really scale out horizontally very well with these nodes, but we can go up to bigger node sizes. And we thought we had 2 more node sizes, higher sizes, more CPU, more RAM available to us. And we did not know, and it was a failure on our part, that our older monolithic code would not run and take advantage of NUMA-based architecture, which is, they've kind of hit a limit on these really big servers as to how many processors they can stick on there. So what they do is they start breaking them out into logical groups that they called NUMA, as that acronym, NUMA. And so when we scaled up that weekend, because we started seeing some significant growth going into January, we weren't, we thought, hey, we've got double the CPU now. We really didn't. And it took us, quite a while, longer, obviously, than we wanted to figure that out. That we weren't really able to take advantage of those additional CPUs. And we really had to pull a little bit of wizardry to get ourselves out of that situation and kind of back to a stable footprint that we're still in right now. That was probably, from a time duration standpoint and an impact to the customer standpoint, that's probably the biggest and most frustrating hurdle that we've had to deal with. The other, is really just the complexity of D&D itself, just the rule set, the game data. But I really see that more as a challenge, right, than just like a frustrating
it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. Yeah. Right. I like it. Yeah, everyone is keying in on what you put on the one slide, that D&D is complicated. So it's I think everybody likes that, because you think about it with Diablo. So when that game comes out, it's an RPG, it's inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. That company, Blizzard, is putting so many developer hours into making that happen, but those characters are going to hit the edge of a map and they can't go any further. So it's something in a video game is so much more defined, and so the flexibility of and the open-endedness of D&D absolutely does make it complicated. All right, we might have time for one more question. We're almost out of time for today. We will do this again in the future. I assure you, it's been a really good time. Big-hearted guy Not a question, but thank you, Dave, to you and your team for all that you do for us. Not a question, but we're going to end there because it is a perfect place to end. So, yes, thank you, Dave, to you and all of our developers out there. We've got such an incredible team, and I'm just thrilled to be able to work with them and for them to put all of this magic together for the community and everything else out there. So, thanks to all of our developers. Dave, I really appreciate you joining me today. This has been great. We'll do it again.
Yeah, this is awesome. Glad to be
All right.
here.
All right. Thanks a lot. Hope everybody has a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Later, Gators.